Speedway Pulse Media is presented by Paley Motorsports.
This, that's right. We're officially partnered with Paley Motorsports as a marketing agent for Paley Motorsports. If you want to reach millions through motorsports, reach out to us and we can get you in touch with Sam. So why wait? Reach millions through motorsports today with Paley Motorsports. All right, Hunter. We really have a basic question to start off with most drivers or whatever. I guess you could say is what really was your start in the racing? We know you kind of do a lot of open wheel stuff, but what really got you into it?
Well, first off, I just have like a big like love of cars and stuff. I've always liked them. I've got a truck I jacked up out front, and my dad has a Corvette. So I mean, I've always kind of been into cars. My dad's been into cars. Grandpa's been into cars. So that's kind of a running thing in the family. But what actually got me into racing and stuff was just go-karting. Like I started going go-karting with my dad on Saturdays. After actually like jujitsu practice, I used to do that a little bit. And it just kind of became like a recurring thing. And then my dad kind of picked up that I liked it. And after that, he got I would say like a professional go kart, kind of like for like SCUSA races and
Mhm.
USPKS. And then that's kind of what I started driving. And then from there, it just kind of like, snowballed. And now we're here.
Yeah, so Hunter, a big part of your career was, like I said, was open wheel. One of the big accolades you got is you were the youngest F4 champion. How big was that for you just to, have that accomplishment on your resume and what you were able to take to Europe going forward?
For me, it was definitely a big accomplishment because actually, before then, I'd actually never won a race like in karting or anything. So my first actual race one was in a car, which was pretty cool.
Cool.
And then from then on, I just kind of like throughout the season and stuff, I was getting like more confident,
Mhm.
with like my racecraft, with my pace, everything else. And then gradually, it just kind of became like a routine and stuff. And then finally, like it was just kind of the end of the season, we won the championship, and I was like, holy cow, like this is crazy, you know. Um, it like is a very like surreal feeling. Um, Especially like winning my first ever championship like in a race car or my first time in competing. And what I brought forward into it into like Europe and stuff, like I thought that was like I thought it was like something cool that I had. I thought it was a cool
Mhm.
accomplishment, but it was kind of like put behind me at that time, and I was like, all right, now I got to go like figure my stuff out over here.
The level of competition in Europe is so stacked. I think, talking to people, whether it's GT or open wheel, did you feel a lot of the pressure on you when you were F3 as being a support to F1? You got to, your Toto Wolff and Zach Brown's watching because they looking to see who's going to be their next guy and maybe in the next few years. What was the pressure situation like just in Europe in general?
I'd say like there was a lot of pressure over there. Not I would say like a little bit from other people, but like mainly from like myself because I wanted to do a good job and like I want to perform and like show what I got, you know. I think one of the hardest things was like getting time on track before actually like going on it for the first time ever.
Mhm.
So like a lot of the times when I went to like a F3 race weekend or something, it was my first time ever at the track, you know, like these other drivers who are European and everything else like that, they might have driven F4 there before, Formula Regional, something else. Whereas I just kind of like, I raced F4 in the United States, raced Formula Regional a little bit in the United States, and then just went over to Europe for F3 with like basically like no track time at all. Like on these tracks and stuff, where like some of these other drivers would have probably had the upper hand a little bit. Um, Going to like some race weekends, so it was a lot about just trying to like pick up tracks quick, learn really quick, and yeah, that was the main thing, just trying to pick it up quick. And then there was some other stuff that was a little bit more. I mean, I guess you could call it like off track. Like um, sometimes like communication is hard, like especially like when you're working with a team that's like not English. You
Mhm.
know, sometimes like communication can be like a little bit of a thing. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's all I'd say on that.
At one point, you were teammates with Logan Sargent. Just, was it always, does having a good teammate like someone like Logan Sargent really help that time over there in Europe?
Oh yeah, for sure. And it was kind of cool, like him being another American and everything else like that. Like he knows what it's like to go over there. He knows what it's like to compete. Um, so it was cool. I was only teamed up with him for I think like two races, but I mean I enjoyed like my entire time with him, so I thought it was good.
Right. And so I think so many people say that the European scene is so much harder with the American drivers coming in just because of the lack of track time and, lack of experience. But what were some of the, and lack of testing was, what was some of the best ways that you thought that made the time over there successful? Because you did have some success over in England.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think the success I had in England, well, let's think actually. I raced GB3 for one race in Belgium. Um, that was like my first. I think that was my first race at Spa. Part half of it was wet, as usually it always is at Spa. Half the weekend was wet. I think I got third in the reverse grid race, which was pretty nice. And then after that, went there in F3. I think probably like a few weeks later, like a month later, or something like that. Uh, and that was really like my first F3 experience, and that was really cool. Like just kind of like being there during an F1 weekend, driving during an F1 weekend. Um, it was a little bit scary because there's a lot of rain. You couldn't see where you're going half the time. But yeah, I mean, it was a really good experience.
Kind of Europe in general. So many of the races are just, the tradition or conditions are so tricky there. But when you came back to America, did you feel that when you came back to America, you came back into the road to Indy that so many of those guys come over to Europe and stuff, and then so many of them don't? But do you feel that the
Mm.
drivers that go to Europe and come back to America have a little bit more of a, I guess, a desire from the teams to want for the teams to want you?
Would you say like teams like in IndyCar, like with like teams
Yeah,
in
yeah, like the IndyCar teams and stuff.
um I feel like I feel like they wouldn't really have like a desire like just based off of like whether you go to like Europe or not. I feel like it's just like if you're winning, then like that's what they want, you know? Like whoever's winning and whoever's got the cash to bring in the team with them, like I think that's definitely I think who they'd want. But
Did you?
I think having like some European like racing experience does help you a little bit. But yeah, really I think it just comes down to winning and performance.
Because I think he's a lot of drivers see kind of writing on the wall that are on. You look at a lot of your Indy Next guys and stuff. They come from that European background, and I think
Mhm.
they see Formula One's such a hard goal to obtain that coming and doing some of the stuff like here in America is just as good. And IndyCar is almost becoming like a feeder series from F1 in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean like, I don't want to take anything away from IndyCar. Like, I mean, I love IndyCar. I think it's a great series. Like after I was like kind of like done in F3 for a little bit and I got to come back to USF Pro, I was like really excited about taking another shot at it. And we had some like good success going in that year. Like I mean, I think I had like a couple podiums, like a race win at NOLA. And like the momentum was kind of going, you know, like kind of like how it was in F4, and then all of a sudden like I just lost my funding. And then that was basically it from there. And that kind of crushed me a little bit. So
Talk
yeah.
about how this. So like last year we saw you get to do a little bit of mix of stuff. You got to do some dirt stuff, and now you're kind of in IMSA. Talk about how that's kind of the deals have kind of all progressed, and what's been it like just kind of bouncing around from different stuff. And I think that really shows how diverse of a driver you are.
Yeah. Well, my dad always told me like if you're gonna be a good driver, you gotta know how to drive everything, you know. So, and that's always part of it. But I mean, coming to IMSA for me, it kind of feels like a new beginning, you know.
Mhm.
Like I've never raced GT cars before. I mean, I've never touched a GT car until about like a month before Daytona, like the actual race. So that was like a little bit of like a learning curve, but in the end, it's kind of all the same. Uh, and Yeah, I mean, like bouncing around and stuff. Bouncing around like sometimes it kind of like is a little bit hard because you're like, man, like, am I ever gonna get in something again where I can just like get in this race series and focus on it?
Mhm.
And sometimes that's a little bit hard to deal with, but like, um, every time you get into a car, it's just like, all right, it's another race car. Just got to go figure it out, you know?
I knew probably the curve had to be kind of steep when y'all went to Daytona, did some motor testing. You're used to a pretty light car with a lot of downforce, and then moving
Yeah,
into a heavy car like a GT car. It's almost kind of like going from an Indy car to a NASCAR in a way.
yeah, pretty much. I would say so. Like, if I was gonna pick out some of the first things I noticed, from driving like open wheel to and then going to the GTs was probably just like the fact that everything moves a little bit slower.
Mhm.
Like not the car in a straight line. I mean, the car in a straight line is super quick. I think we were hitting like 175 miles an hour on the oval uh, over the weekend at Daytona. But like in the corners wise, like I mean, the car's super heavy, um, so it takes a while for like the weight to transfer and stuff. Uh, and everything's just kind of like slowed down. So coming from open wheel and everything, where you have to be like everything's moving so fast, it's almost like you get to take a step back and like think like actually have time to think about what you're gonna do rather than just kind of like be always living in the moment, you know?
That's kind of thing, that's what so many people tell me. But you see so many of the guys now coming over to want to do the sports car stuff. And Well, some of the things that you're able to tell them and teach them the first time getting in the car, just since you know what it's like coming from a F3 or F4 and hopping into a big heavy sports car for someone that's never done it before. What's some of the things that you can kind of tell them to figure out for their first time?
Like if it's somebody's first time driving a car.
Yeah, one of those first timers, because so many of those
Uh,
guys now are making that move.
oh yeah, like I mean, I would say like one thing to get used to is probably like the ABS. Like that was one thing that I've never had before that I had to try. Uh, is kind of like when you're going to a hard braking zone, like turn one at Daytona,
Hmm.
like figuring out how deep you can go into the ABS before it just kind of starts becoming like before it kind of like starts hurting you, I guess you could
Hmm.
say, like kind of like starts hurting the car's braking
Yeah.
performance. Um, Another thing is traction control. There's a lot of like dials to play with on traction control. You got your longitudinal traction control, your lateral traction control. Um, if you've raced in anything like F3, you kind of know how like a throttle map, how changing throttle maps works. So that's something that you might be able to carry over from like open wheel to GT stuff. But yeah, I mean, and then just everything kind of like working a little bit slower, just because the car is bigger and heavier. You know what I mean?
So we'll talk about Daytona real quick. How, there was a lot of speed over the 2 weeks there. I know the first practice session of the Aurora didn't get a lot of track time, but as the weekend kept going, the speed kept progressing, and ultimately you got in the car qualifying and gave a top 10 qualifying effort. And by the end of the first stint, y'all were competing in top five. How much what's the word I'm looking for? Hopefulness does that give y'all building into the rest of the year? Because it's hard coming into a series as a new team and three new drivers that haven't really raced against each other or raced with each other.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, like I think we did a little bit of testing, probably about like a month before Daytona, and that went pretty good. Like I think our times are like pretty well on pace. So that kind of gave me a little bit of confidence coming into Daytona. And then first time I stepped in the car, it felt really good. Um, just try to kind of like get to grips with it. Every time I go out in the car, I just try and like worry about things that I can control. Like
Mhm.
I go out there, like first thing I worry about is like my preparation. Like I do everything I need to do like to be prepped, like getting good sleep, getting my warm up done before I get in the car every single time, and then uh, jumping in the car and stuff. And it's like if something goes wrong with the car, then that's like I can't help that. So
Yeah.
like I just kind of sit there and just stay calm, until they tell me what's up. But yeah, I mean the car was like really good the entire week. I mean we are having a couple like issues and stuff at first, like mechanically, but every time the car was going well, like I mean, every time the car was running and stuff, like we were going really well, usually like within the top five, top 10. Um, and that's just like some more momentum that I could see us carrying throughout the race here.
Yeah, and I saw that Daytona doing both weeks. The Fords, all the Fords were just extremely quick, so I know that really had to give y'all a lot of promise. But it was a new race team, and getting to grips with everyone, and you had two new co-drivers. I know you've raced with Sam before, but what was it
Yeah,
like getting to grips with both Sam and Ethan, and having to share one car instead of everybody having a separate car like you're used to?
yeah, it's definitely interesting. Like that's a good point you brought up there. Like in most racing series and stuff, like especially open wheel, it's like you're kind of like uh, you're always kind of like to yourself, and like you, let me try and think. Like you got your own car and stuff, and
Mhm.
like you want to do well, and like you always want to be the best one on the team, because the best one on the team is going to be the one who like uh hold on, you mind if I just like restart all that?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Can you re-ask the question?
So, let's see. So when y'all, so you've raced with Sam before, and then you had Ethan. How is it? Not everyone can have what they really want, the way they want the car set up. What's it like having to get used with everyone's kind of, driving style and adjustments inside the car compared to, like when you were in the open wheel stuff where everybody, had their own way. You could have your own setup the way you want in the car.
Yeah. Um, in an open wheel car and stuff, like everything's like very fit to you. Like you have your own seat made, you have your
Hmm.
pedals exactly where you want them. Steering is like exactly where you want it. And then when you have to share with two other drivers, it's usually like not that way, or at least like when you get to hop in the car after another driver, it's not that way. Like with Ethan, it wasn't so bad because he's like the exact same height as me, but with
Hmm.
Sam being slightly shorter, I would have to jump in, move the pedals, move the steering wheel, um, and then on top of that, like get all my belts changed and stuff. And then so that was more on like I guess like the driver swap side, but then like on the actual car side, like mechanically and stuff. With like, I mean, every driver has their own preference when it comes to setup and how they like the car to feel, to be able to like drive it fast and stuff. That's another thing that you have to get used to with having these other drivers involved, like a newer driver like Ethan, um, another driver like Sam who does more of like the NASCAR series stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, they all like their cars like a certain way. I like my car a certain way, so you kind of have to set it up to be level like across the board, so that way everybody's like has the most confidence to go out there and do a good job. You know.
I think that was probably one of the most diverse lineup of drivers. All three of y'all have the open wheel background, but Sam was kind of odd man out. He's kind of used to these cars in a way with doing the Trans Am stuff, and so he's really the only one with any true sports car experience. How much were y'all able to lean on him? I know there are some differences between the cars, but just because he knows how some of these cars run, were y'all able to lean on him so much or a good bit and find a lot of, weak points and strengths of the car?
A little bit. I would say like mainly the questions I had for Sam were like the first time I drove it because he's like I knew that he'd driven a car like a GT car before, or like I know he's driven a car with like a roof per se.
Yeah,
Um, so I was kind of asking him like, hey man, like what's it actually like going out here like driving these cars with roofs and stuff? Because he's driven open wheel and he's driven uh like the stock car type stuff and
yeah.
trans. So he had like a little bit of like good feedback for me, just telling me like the vision, like I guess like the vision out of the windshield and stuff isn't as bad as it seems because you feel kind of like you're boxed in there inside the GT car, whereas the open wheel cars just everything's open. Um, but yeah, just like I guess like some stuff like that, and like everything moves slower. You know what I mean?
So, looking forward, we're just, I guess, about 3 weeks out from Sebring. What's some things that you can take that you learned from those, the test week at Daytona and then the race week and go forward to Sebring and then the rest of the year? Because obviously, it's going to be kind of a learning year because, you've gone to some of these tracks, but some of them you're going to have to, I guess, relearn how to drive them just because like I said, everything's going to be a little slower in a GT car.
Yeah. Well, one thing I guess like for Sebring and stuff is like it'll definitely take the bumps better than open wheel because open wheel you're just like it's kind of like rattling your bones the entire way around the track, you know. Um, But I mean, I've got a lot of experience at Sebring. Like I've done like a lot of testing there, especially from my open wheel days. In F4, I won all three races when I drove there, so I'm looking forward to it. I've been on the sim testing, like with the GT cars, kind of anything I can drive there on the sim, and yeah, I'm just gonna make sure I'm like prepared when I go into Sebring.
I think that, what we saw at Daytona at the beginning of the race, I think that can really transpire. Obviously, this year the competition, I think, in GT4 is at a top level of it. And Ford looks really strong. Do you think with the right manufacturer that we could see a good battle with Ford going throughout the rest of the year with all the guys?
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, I think uh, I've never driven any of the other GT4s, but like the Ford was a great car. Like I mean, when we were on track, we were always at like kind of at the top of the pace. Like we were a brand new team. We placed P10 in qualifying and stuff. So the car has really good pace. Um, and I think like going throughout the year and stuff, I think we're gonna have a good year.
We'll end it with this. Looking at the long-term goal, has the door closed for you? Would you say an open wheel, and are you more in line to say sports car racing? And would the opportunity of maybe say GT3 or prototype, if that would come available, would that be something you would want to jump at?
Oh yeah, I mean like I'm always available to like new opportunities like LMP2, GT3, any of that stuff. I wouldn't say like the door to open wheel is closed because like if I ended up finding the funding for it and I had like I guess you could say like a set path to maybe go to Indy next, USF Pro 2000, or maybe even make the jump back to F3.
Mhm.
Uh, I'd probably do it. So I wouldn't say the door is closed, but since I'm in like GT4 now, like I'm just gonna focus on that until something else comes up.
It's easier to focus on one than having to make the transition back to others because there's a
Yeah,
certain few that can really make that happen. But for a lot of people, it's easier to stay in one and just put all your focus towards one than the other.
yeah,
Well, Hunter, we want to thank you for coming on, and it was really great. We're glad to make this happen, and we'll be at Sebring here in just about 3 weeks, so we'll come by and shoot some cool stuff, and looking forward to getting back to the track here pretty soon.
awesome. Yeah, looking forward to see you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Hunter.
Thanks for inviting me on.
Absolutely glad to have you on. Really cool to get this one. Some people with some really cool experience like that with F3 and getting to compete with a lot of guys that people are watching on Sundays in F1.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see you in just about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
See you.